Ladies and gentlemen, stock madness. 64 of the biggest stocks going head to head in weekly matchups, with the better performing stock percentage wise that week taking home the victory in their matchup. We've got these 64 stocks sectioned off into 4 different regions of the bracket. Each region represents the stock's sector. So the 4 sector regions that we have on our bracket are technology, financials, consumer retail, and miscellaneous. Then, within each region of the bracket, we have the stocks seeded 1 through 16. And they were seeded based on their total market cap, so value of the company, and their overall popularity. These matchups are starting this week and going through the beginning of April. So we will crown our champion after the first week of April. My name is Mark Palmer. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MarketPalmer. Let's take a deeper dive into each region of the bracket. First up, we've got our technology region. I think this region is kind of the tale of 2 different types of companies. We've got big tech, the most popular ones we're always hearing about, like Apple, Microsoft, Meta platforms, Netflix. These companies are kind of the sexy investments people like to talk about. Lots of money flows into them. People day trade them. They try to do a lot of different things with these stocks. Then we've got our kind of less sexy technology companies, but big companies nonetheless that make the world go around still. Our Cisco's, Texas Instruments, Nvidia. We've got Intel. A lot of different companies here that are still big and still could make a run in this bracket, but aren't as much of household common names. There are definitely some interesting matchups in this region. I think right off the bat, Apple and Match. This is Match Group, so they own Tinder and some other dating websites and apps. I think that there could be a close race with this one, even though it's a 1 versus 16. Apple's a big dog, obviously. They're currently the most valuable company in the world, but I think since it's just a 1-week matchup, Match could pull through. They could do something and end up with a better week than Apple and just catch Apple at the wrong time. Match could end up winning that, but we'll see. Another one that I like here is Meta Platforms and Netflix. These are 2 companies that have had some big swings up and down lately, and especially over the past few years. So facing off in a 1-round, 1-week matchup, I'll be curious to see who pulls through on this one. My pick to come out of the technology region is our 2 seed, Microsoft. They just introduced ChatGPT into their search engine Bing. I think that's going to continue to cause a lot of commotion and people talking about the company. Could go either direction then, but I do like to see Microsoft make a run at this one. Obviously, anything can happen when it's a field of 64 like this. Activision could take it to them in the first round, but I think Microsoft has the clearest path through this region into the Final 4. Next up, we have our financials region. This one's pretty interesting. I think we've got a lot of similar companies here. The big banks, any of them could make a run, or it's hard to tell. You know, they're pretty close matchups when they're going up against each other. We've got some payment processing companies, some brokerages, and then we've kind of got one unique outlier, and that is our 16 seed here, Coinbase. They're the one company that's a little bit different than all the rest. They're going up against Berkshire Hathaway, which is a company that's pretty set in their ways. We've got Warren Buffett leading the way with that company, and he's actually spoken out against cryptocurrency, him and his partner have, and it's an interesting, we'll call it a rivalry, because even though it's a 1 versus 16, there has been a little bit of smack talk from the 1 about the 16, and the 16s just kind of going to work still with their future vision of how the world of currency will look in 10, 20, however many years. Now, is that going to help them in a 1-week matchup? We'll see. But that's one to keep an eye on, and then all the rest of these here, I do think anything can happen in this bracket. It's hard for me to pick one company to come out of this region. I think there's going to be a lot of close matchups each week. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with a Cinderella, a 10 seed, and that is BlackRock. They're invested in a lot of great companies, in my opinion, and I think they've got what it takes to knock off Morgan Stanley. And then if Visa wins their matchup against Aflac, I think BlackRock could definitely take down Visa as well and start making a run into the Final Four. We'll see, though. They do have to get past Morgan Stanley in order to even make this a discussion. Over in our consumer retail region, we've got a lot of rivalry matchups. Right off the bat, the 1 and 16 seed, we've got Amazon coming in the top seed of this region, going up against Target, two retail giants. That'll be a fun one to watch. Then, perhaps as rivalry as it gets, we have Coca-Cola versus PepsiCo in the 8-9 game. That one's going to be exciting. And if we move down a little bit, 5 versus 12, we have Home Depot versus Lowe's. Quite a few rivalries within here. We've got some other interesting company names as well. Tesla going up against CVS Health. Tesla's a very volatile stock typically, so we'll see which team comes to play this week and all of the remaining weeks throughout the tournament if they continue to move on. My pick here as a Cinderella pick that could come out of this bracket is Starbucks. They have an interesting business model. They somewhat operate as a bank, which not a lot of people realize with their whole rewards and gift card balance system. They could knock off Procter & Gamble, but again, PG, Procter & Gamble is a pretty big giant. Not going to go down without a fight. And then we've got our miscellaneous region here. This is kind of like the wild, wild west of our stock madness bracket. So many different sectors. We've got energy with ExxonMobil and Chevron in here. We've got healthcare with Medtronic, United Health Group. We've got communications with T-Mobile, Verizon. Really hard to predict region since we don't know which sectors are going to have good performing weeks in the coming weeks ahead throughout this tournament. So hard to make predictions in this bracket. I think if I had to choose a Cinderella, I would choose Deere & Co. That's John Deere knocking off Johnson & Johnson and making a run through this region. But anything can happen. I think Johnson & Johnson certainly also would not go down without a fight. We'll see who comes to play. The company that I don't really see winning any games is AT&T, but maybe they'll make me eat my words. I just think they're very steady. They don't move a lot typically when I've looked at their stock. So I think they're going to be predictable, and Eli Lilly will knock them off in the first round. Another potential Cinderella in this bracket is MDT, Medtronic. Don't be surprised if they make a run at this thing. I could even see them winning it all. They're a 15 seed, so that would be quite a bold prediction, but if anyone's going to do it as a 15 seed, I think they've got what it takes. Keep in mind, this is just for fun. None of this is any sort of financial advice. These are all short-term matchups, so nothing to be making long-term investment decisions based on. We're doing it just for fun. To follow along all the excitement, be sure to click that subscribe button and like this video. I'll be posting weekly recaps of the prior week that will also look into the next week's matchups. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram at MarketPalmer. We're at 64 teams right now. Next video we'll be down to 32. Take a look at the board. Let me know if you've got a champion picked out, or if you're bold, if you have a Final Four picked out. And if you think there are any upsets coming up in this round, I'd love to hear about that too. We'll see you next week.